You are listening to Lone Star Community Radio on 104.5 KCZWLP Conroe and 106.1 KZCCLP Conroe and worldwide on irlonestar.com.
Hi, welcome to Legal Connection Show. My name's Tony Collins. I'm an attorney in Texas and live in the Montgomery County area. This show is a public service for the residents of Conroe and Montgomery County and the surrounding cities, and we talk about topics that will help the residents. And you can get us or listen to us at FM 104.5 and FM 106.1 on the local radio bands on Tuesdays at noon until 1 o'clock. And you can also listen to us if you can't listen to us on that broadcast at the Legal Connection Show on Facebook. We have a Facebook page where you can get all of our previous recordings. You can also go to irlonestar.com, and on that, that's the actual radio station that we broadcast on. You can go to the Legal Connection Show and find all of our previous recordings if you want to go back and listen to them. And you can also go to the Legal Connection Show on YouTube. All of our previous recordings are also housed that way. So today we're going to talk about a couple of issues that affect the community. One is who's running for the Montgomery County offices in 2022. And then we're going to kind of focus on the commissioner's race because Charley Riley is running against Jennifer Eckhart, and Commissioner Riley, who's the incumbent, had posted some on his campaign page. He had posted some stuff that has to do with our that involved our homeowners association. One of the ones that I have some property in, which is the Westwood Landowners Association over in Montgomery County and Magnolia. And we're going to have a special guest, Diana, who is the treasurer of the Westwood Landowners Association, to go over some issues that affect drainage and some of the legal aspects of who's responsible and some opinions from Governor Abbott. And then we're going to discuss some of the legal cases that involve that same issue. All right, so to get into our show, who is running for Montgomery County offices in 2022? And that topic was, I keep seeing all these campaign posters everywhere, not even knowing that there's an election coming up, because typically that's in November. And I know there's primaries and what have you, but it made me look because I know a lot of these people personally that are running. I didn't know they were running for office. And my husband told me, my beloved husband's like, you need to run for office. And this is not a good time for me to be running for anything because I'm getting ready to start my graduate program to get my master's in the architectural department at Texas A&M in land development, so I can start just one more career in my life. In addition to being an attorney and a real estate broker, I'm now going to learn how to be a developer. So I'm pretty excited about that, and that starts next week. But that's going to take a little bit off my plate. And I think once I finish that master's program, I'll be in a better position to run for office because I'll know all the ins and outs and the permits required and, you know, legally what kind of liability and responsibility the different developers and homeowners and what have you, everybody has. So that's just going to help me along, and I'll be better prepared to help the community. All right, so who's running for Montgomery County offices in 2022? And I'm reading this from the Impact newspaper, and that looks like it's produced in Montgomery County. So this goes on to say the deadline to file for candidacy in Texas elections ended December 13th, probably around the time that you saw all these election and campaign posters going up around the various areas. In Montgomery County, 22 candidates filed for county offices in the March 1st primary. So the primaries are March 1st. That's why you're seeing suddenly all of these billboards and campaign notices. And this is according to the Secretary of State. Of note, 3 candidates, including incumbent Mark Keogh filed for county judge. 2 candidates each, including incumbents Charley Riley and James Metz, filed for commissioner seats for precincts 2 and 4. The first day to apply for a ballot by mail will be January 1st, and the last day to apply will be February 1st. Voting will run from February 14th to the 25th, according to the Secretary of State's office, and Texans can find more information on registering to vote through www.votetexas.gov. And there's always just a plethora of information when you go to these state websites, votetexas.gov, and they've also got the state library. If you are not just listening and you actually sit down and Google something other than what's on Facebook and, the latest on what the cause of death was for, Bob Saget or, Betty White or things that or who won in the national championships for NCAA football, which, by the way, was Georgia, if you watched that game last night. And it was very exciting. And I was so excited to see Georgia just come through and finally get their, national championship, 40 years late when they've come so close and they worked so hard. And it was all like in the last 3 minutes. Really exciting game. And so congrats to the Georgia Bulldogs. I'm very excited for them. My sister was born in Savannah, Georgia, so I've got that kind of close to my heart. All right. So here are the people that are running for the different offices that I just had no idea until I looked at this. Mark Keogh is running for the Republican primaries to be in the Republican primaries. He filed November 24th. Sarah Countryman is also running on the Republican side. She filed December 3rd. Billy Graff is also running as a Republican. He filed November 25th. And it's interesting to note that nobody is running on the Democratic side in Montgomery County for county judge. Makes sense. We're a very Republican county. All right. Second, Precinct 2 Commissioner. Charley Riley is the incumbent. He filed on November 17th. Jennifer Eckhart is filed December 3rd. She's also filing as running as a Republican in the primary on March 1st. I'm hoping to have Commissioner Riley and his opponent, Jennifer Eckhart, on the show, both individually, to sort of tell me what for the benefit of the community, what their campaign platforms are. In Commissioner Riley's case, what he's done for the community, how long he's been in office. And in his opponent, Jennifer Eckhart's case, what she will do differently and why we should vote for her. And we're going to go over a little bit more about what Commissioner Riley's posted on his campaign website that affected our homeowners association in a little while today on the show. But to go on, Precinct 4 Commissioner, the candidates for the primary are James Metz, running as a Republican. He filed November 17th. And Matthew Gray, who filed November 25th. So there's only 2 people running in that race. For Precinct 1, Justice of the Peace, Wayne Mack is the incumbent. He filed November 25th. And nobody's running against him. So I don't see anybody running as on the Democratic side either. So Wayne Mack is going to be in again. And I've been in his court a number of times for eviction cases and very small claims cases. And I really like him. I think he's a fair judge. The way he runs his court, and he says the prayer and a prayer and an allegiance to the Texas flag and the American flag. He runs a pretty tight ship, so he's a good guy. I like his court. So for Precinct 2, Justice of the Peace, we have Grady Spikes. He's a Republican. Nobody else is running against him. He's more than likely going to win that primary, and it appears that without anybody running on the Democratic side, he's going to be the next Justice of the Peace for Precinct 2 by default. Precinct 3, Justice of the Peace, and that's the one that's over there on Lakefront and the Woodlands Mall. There is the incumbent, who is Matthew Beasley, Republican. He's filed December 3rd. And the Democrat has filed, April Prim has filed as a Democrat for the primary. So they're both going to win their primaries, but they will face off in the November election to find out who is going to be the Justice of the Peace. I will say that Judge Matthew Beasley, who's the incumbent, will more than likely win because we're such a heavily Republican county. But, I guess it remains to be seen when we have the actual elections. Precinct 4, Justice of the Peace, Republican Jason Dunn is the only one who's filed on November 25th. So by default, he's probably going to be our Justice of the Peace for Precinct 4. And Justice of the Peace, Precinct 5 is Matt Masden. He filed November 17th, and nobody else has filed as a Democrat under the Democratic primary or against him. So he will probably by default also be the Precinct 5 Justice of the Peace again. County Court at Law 1 has got two persons running, both as Republican in the Republican primary. They both filed November 17th. Brian Kane is the first one, and the second is John Halfley. I'm familiar with John Halfley, not so much Brian Kane, but I probably know him by sight if I saw him. Hopefully I can get one or both of them on our show to talk about why either one of them is the better candidate, the County Court at Law number 1 judge. County Court at Law number 2 has got, I don't have anybody for County Court at Law number 2, but that just means that my page ran out, and so I don't know who's running for that court, or even if they're up for election. It just is listed, so I'll have to give you an update on that when I find out more information. County Court at Law number 3 has got two persons running. Amy Tucker is running as the incumbent as a Republican. She filed November 17th. My understanding was that she was the associate judge before she was appointed by Governor Abbott to take the role as the head judge, because I think the judge that the head of that court had to resign for medical reasons. But I don't remember right off. I just know that she was the associate judge, and now she's running as the incumbent because she was appointed. Laura Watson is her opponent in the March primaries as a Republican. I don't know anything about Laura Watson, except we also have a Judge Watson in County Court at Law number 5, so they might be related, but I don't know. I'll have to look into that and keep you updated on our next show. I'd love to have both of them on to talk about why either one of them is the better candidate for running for office to be our County Court at Law number 3 judge. And I do a lot of work in County Court at Law number 3, so that's an important court for me because they do probate and divorces. So critical that we get a good person as judge in that position. I know that I have some friends that live near Judge Tucker, and they just love her. They think she's the best person ever. So I'd love to have her on and talk to her in person, and you can decide for yourself. County Court at Law number 4 has got one person that filed for the Republican primary. That's Echo Hudson. Without having a Democratic, anybody in the Democratic primary and anybody else or even incumbent, it looks like Echo Hudson just by default is going to win. No, there's no incumbent there. So, there you go. You got to kind of keep watch of if you want to run as a county judge and you fit and you meet the criteria for it. I guess you got to kind of keep up and be politically connected enough to know what positions are open. County Court at Law number 6, which I think that must be a new court because I've never been in County Court at Law number 6. Charlene Valdez, Republican, filed November 18th, has nobody running against her. So by default, she's going to be our County Court at Law number 6 judge. And she wasn't an incumbent. Hopefully she can come in and tell us a little bit about herself so we will be informed here in Montgomery County. District Clerk, the only person that's running that is filed for the primaries is Melissa Miller. She's the incumbent, done a really, really good job. She filed November 25th. She will be, by default, be our district clerk again. And county treasurer, the only person that's filed for the primaries is Melanie Bush, the incumbent, filed November 25th also. And by default, it looks like she's also going to be our county treasurer again. So those are all of the Montgomery County candidates that filed to our primaries. So that's not all the candidates in the state. There's many other people that we will vote for that are running for, governor and a land commissioner, what have you. But today I'm only discussing the ones that affect us here in Montgomery County. All right. So I want to talk a little bit about Commissioner Riley's post that he made on his campaign site. and what he has to say about Westwood and Landowners Association and his position on drainage and the responsibility of the commissioner and what have you. But I'd like to take a short break so we can get our treasurer of the Westwood Landowners Association on the line. So we're going to take a short break and get her on the line, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this and Charley Riley's post, as well as his position on drainage, and then what we know about the legal position on who's responsible for drainage issues within our community. So I'll talk to you in a little bit.
Listen in Mondays at noon to hear Conroe news from local nonprofits, businesses, upcoming events, Conroe Park events, news stories, and information that matters to you with your host, Margie Taylor of Taylorized PR. For more information about being a guest, visit irlonestar.com/Conroe Culture.
God's Garage is a 501c3 that repairs and gives away cars for free to single moms, widows, and wives of deployed military. You can help God's Garage by donating a vehicle, volunteering your time, or by monetary donation. God's Garage is located at 2106 East Davis, Conroe. If you'd like to learn more about God's Garage, visit our website at godsgarage.org. Or you can contact us and we would be glad to come and make a presentation to your group.
Hi, welcome back to the Legal Connection Show. We're talking about, we just got through talking about the campaign elections and who's running for the different primaries in what offices in Montgomery County a few minutes ago. And we're now going to talk about Commissioner Charley Riley, who's an incumbent running for, he's in the primary on March 1st. Some information that he posted on his, I believe it was his website and maybe his campaign website that that was, I guess, we learned about through our homeowners association. And so I've got Diana Machete, who is the treasurer of the Westwood Landowners Association, to tell us a little bit about what was posted and what was found, and the topic that came up today about drainage problems in our community, but it also affects a number of other neighborhoods and communities in Montgomery County, and we're going to just explore that a little bit. Okay, so welcome to the program, Diana, and tell us a little bit about what happened.
Thank you. It was brought to our attention when it was posted on our neighborhood pages that Commissioner Riley had posted on his campaign page and on his official social media network for commissioner, that it was the HOA's responsibility to take care of the drainage. And we know that through several of our attorney's opinions that that is not the case. And
so did we
that,
actually get a legal opinion from our attorney, or was it verbal, or was it in writing? Do you remember?
No, it's been in writing, and it's been from not just one attorney, but it's been from several attorneys.
The attorneys for our association, and basically
yes.
That opinion says that there is no that the HOA, or in our case it was the landowner association, not just the homeowner association. They're kind of the same, but they have, they're structured a little bit differently. But that we're only responsible for the common areas, and that the LOA is free of any responsibility for the areas that are owned by private citizens. Or is that correct, or what?
Yes, and then because our plat specifically gives the drainage easements to the county, and the commissioner's court did their formalities and signed off on it.
Okay, so when when our developer in like 1979 for the Westwood Landowner Association created this subdivision, which has got about 2,100 people in it, and other neighborhoods have smaller, larger. But basically, when a developer creates a subdivision, they generally will create also a homeowners association, landowner association, whatever they actually call it, it's an association of members so that the community can be maintained. They also, to get it subdivided, they have to create a plat that needs to be approved by the commissioner's court and sometimes the city. And in that plat, a lot of times what's actually designated on that plat will take precedent and then will determine what responsibilities and liabilities the homeowners association has. So you go not only to the documents, the governing documents that are created, but you look to the plat to determine whether the easements are owned, have been dedicated to the county, are still owned by the owner, or if they were actually given to the county. And so every situation may be different. But in the situation with Westwood, what you're saying is that the easements are still owned by the homeowners, but that the county has responsibility for those drainage easements to maintain them for Westwood. Is that correct?
Yes, and at the same time, it's when the streets were turned over to the county.
Okay, and so
it's in the same document.
Okay, and so I'm going to read what was posted so that it's clear, so we're not just saying what we think it says. I'm going to read what was posted on December 21st, 2021, on Commissioner Charley Riley's page, the one that I was provided. So if it's the same one that was that you're saying that was on the campaign page and on his Facebook page, and it reads as follows. The residents of Westwood off of Sugarbush, and when he's referring to Westwood, he means Westwood Landowners Association, are commenting again about drainage issues. And we know there, as my understanding is that Westwood Landowners Association has got low areas, and at one time there was going to be something called Lake Magnolia and on parts of it. So we were a low-lying area that Bear Branch ran through, so we already had issues with flood zones and what have you, and I haven't looked at the plats, and I'm not going to be really specific about it, but there were some drainage issues out there. Okay, so back on to what he says. He says, these are the same concerns which Commissioner Riley addressed with the Drainage Committee that included homeowners Julie Vanderhurst from Westwood and Jennifer Eckhart from Sandora Ranch in 2018. So let me stop there and ask you, did Westwood Landowner Association, let me ask you this. Were you a board member in 2018 for the Westwood Landowners Association?
Honestly, I can't remember, but I believe I was.
Okay.
But then it was right after that.
Okay. Do you know if there was a drainage committee, at least for Westwood at that time?
There was a drainage committee, okay. And then there was an engineering report done, and he posted the survey of that engineering report and said that the county had done everything.
Okay, but let me go back. When you say he posted it, did he post it December 21st, 2021, or did he post it and when you say he, are you talking about Commissioner Riley?
Commissioner Riley posted that on his page.
Okay,
also.
on December 21st, 2021, so very recently.
Yes.
So he posted, it looked like a plat of something that was created in 2018. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And so to go on with what this says in 2018, the 2018 recommendation, which must be based what you're telling me is the engineer's report, which was reinforced by a registered state of Texas engineer surveyor who is familiar with FM 1488 area, and of course Westwood 1488 runs kind of right through the middle of it, stated that in order to fix the drainage concerns, the HOA would need to correct the drainage easements that run alongside and behind the private property. And then he goes on to say the county cannot spend taxpayer dollars on private property. So tell me if you agree or disagree or what your take is on that last paragraph I just read.
As far as that the county cannot spend money on private property, Greg Abbott issued an opinion back in 2007 about that the public funds can be spent on private property if, number one, there's an easement or permission on the property, and number two, if it was in the public's best interest for it to be done.
Okay. And so you had sent me a copy of Governor Abbott's opinion. And just if our listeners wanted to actually read it, I can post it on the Legal Connection Show page. But also, I just wanted to kind of give a heads up of where it is. It's opinion number GA, which is probably Governor Abbott, -0528. And it was the topic of that opinion was about whether a seawall funded from assessments levied pursuant to a local government code may be built on privately owned land. But the actual application and analogy is the same, because if you have privately owned land that needs work done on it, can the government fund it? And so you're saying that based on this opinion that was issued by Governor Abbott, that yes, if it's in the public's best interest, that what Commissioner Riley is saying is not true, that actually the county and the state or the government can spend taxpayer dollars on private property if it meets the criteria set out in Governor Abbott's opinion, GA 0528. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. So to go on, that just, it looks like there may be maybe a miscommunication by Commissioner Riley in his posting if Governor Abbott's opinion contradicts what he said. So the next sentence, he says, the survey drawing that he attached to his December 21st, 2021 post, which anybody can look up, it's on Commissioner Riley's pages. The survey drawing that he attached was a Westwood drawing, and it says it was given to the Drainage Committee in 2018. I don't know that to be true or not true, but if you were on the committee at the time and you recognize it, that may be the case. It says the HOA, when we're actually an LOA, still has not made any attempt to correct this drainage concern on private property. So that being said, what, as the treasurer of the Westwood Landowners Association, what do you say about that statement? Is that correct or not correct?
It doesn't matter what amount of work that was or was not done. If you look in the upper right hand quadrant of that survey,
Mm-hmm.
that is actually going through Sendera,
Oh, okay.
and that is a culvert that runs underneath Ranch Lake,
Mm-hmm.
and it is several feet higher
Uh-huh.
than the water level would be. So that has not been addressed by the county.
Mm-hmm.
The county would have to fix the culvert so that it would allow the water to run through there.
Okay.
Right now, it basically is damming up the water, and the water could not leave, no matter
What we
amount
did
of
with
work
the
was done.
whatever. So what you're saying, and I'm familiar with what you're talking about because it's the northern boundary of Westwood Landowners Association that borders Sendera Ranch, correct?
Yes.
And
Yes.
it opened at one of the places where it appears that it would drain from our subdivision would be at 2978 and Ranch Lake. Is that correct?
It actually is in Sendera. It's not at 2978.
Okay.
It goes through Sendera,
Okay.
and it's Ranch Lake.
Ranch Lake is a street that is in
It's a street,
Sendera
yes.
Ranch, right? And
Yes.
but it's it's basically sort of the dividing line between the two subdivisions, and it's a major drainage thoroughfare that is behind our subdivision, but not actually. Well, I mean, you might be able to clarify that for me. Is this is the culvert on Ranch Lake? Is that owned on private? Is it on private property or on county property? Do you know?
It's the roadway is county property.
Okay. Is it
The
an
culvert
easement?
is county property.
Is the culvert is it in an easement or is it actually owned by the county? Do you know?
It is not on an easement. It actually runs underneath a county road.
Okay, got it. And so so what he's saying basically, if I'm understanding this and I haven't looked at all the facts, he's saying that that this is private property, but according to the plat, it's not private property. Is that correct?
Ranch Lake is not private property.
Where that
It is the
culvert
county
stands.
property.
Okay.
Where that culvert stands is
Okay.
not private property; is county property.
And again, we're not
Or
trying
it's
to.
county maintained roadway.
Okay, either way, the county would maintain it because it's an easement that was dedicated for use of. And I haven't looked at this, but you're saying that it says in the actual plat that was signed off by the Commissioner's Court that that particular culvert is maintained by the county. Is that correct?
That's correct, and that actually where it runs in that upper right hand quadrant where it's a thin line running up there. That's the easement that goes through Sendera Ranch to that culvert.
Okay, so I'm actually going to try to show our listeners this little plat. I'm not sure if it'll show or not, but this is the plat that's attached to the bottom of Commissioner Riley's email, and I don't know if you can make it large or not if you just want to go there, but you can see on this plat that there's a tiny little line that runs between the two subdivisions. This is Sendera Ranch to the north and Westwood Landowners Association to the south. And it does appear that there is that this particular culvert is not owned by the homeowners members, but is an actual easement that was dedicated to the county, much like a street would be. I don't know that without actually looking at the deed records and what have you, but I'm kind of relying on what you're telling me right here. One way or the other, whether it's on private property with an easement or if it was dedicated and given to the county, what you're telling me is that it's a culvert thoroughfare that should be managed by the county for drainage purposes, correct?
Yes, it runs underneath their roadway.
Okay, and so I'm going to go on to talk a little bit about more what is actually written on this posting by Commissioner Riley. It says, Precinct 2 has corrected extended drainage paths to facilitate the flow of water in several areas. The office will provide this service where needed and within the county guidelines. Every county drainage job is measured and evaluated to keep the water off of the road and flowing through the ditches. Property owners need to notify the office at 281-259-6492 to create a work order for any problem areas. Now, that leads to me to ask you two questions. First, do you know, to go back to another thing that was said in this posting, did Westwood Landowners Association, whether or not it was a responsibility or not, did they contact the owners that back their properties are contiguous with this culvert that's being discussed, that runs along Ranch Lake? Was any discussion had with the owners to clear the drainage on the back of their lots, or what do you know about that?
The most of the owners were involved in the drainage committee or with talks with the drainage committee to try to get some relief.
Okay.
So, but the part that runs through Sendera, those were that's owned by there's an easement there, but the property is owned by Sendera homeowners. Okay,
so that would be sort of out of the hands of the Westwood Landowners Association if the easement is actually, and if the property is owned by Sendera Ranch owners or their association or the county, but the easement is not on Westwood land. Is that what you're saying?
The easement that's running towards Ranch Lake, that is Sendera.
Okay.
Homeowners. There is an easement that runs behind Westwood, and the drainage, the water flows, but the outflow goes through Sendera.
Okay.
So all the water, that's where all the water goes, from the ditches and everything.
Okay.
The ditches that are meant to flow goes through the easements of the private property owners.
Okay. And so in order to, I guess, fact check this posting, really, and it seems to be geared toward Westwood because they talk about at the bottom, Westwood Services, really Sendera Ranch needs to be involved in this and discussed, not Westwood, if I'm reading this correctly. And even so, if it's an easement that the county's responsible for, this would be probably incorrect. Is that right?
That is, yes, it
Okay.
is incorrect.
Okay.
Just since the water cannot flow, we have no outflow because it's stuck at Ranch Lake.
Okay. And
it's stuck at that culvert.
Okay. And it's the culvert on county property, Sandera Ranch property or easement, or Westwood Landowners Association, Westwood easement. Without looking, I'm relying upon you because I don't have that map in front of me.
The culvert runs under Ranch Lake, which is a road maintained by the county.
Okay. So, all right. So there, it looks like we'll have to have, hopefully we'll get Commissioner Riley in here to be on the show to talk about this, or maybe he can respond or maybe correct this post if that's the case. Either respond to clarify or correct. All right. So the next thing this says, the next paragraph says, Commissioner Riley's office is very aware of repeat concerns in some neighborhoods. Recommendations are provided to the property owners to address any issues that end up being a private property responsibility. But as we discussed, this doesn't appear to be a private property responsibility because if the easement was dedicated or if the property was dedicated to the county, it's a county easement. It would not be. It would take it out of the private property issue and put it into public. Or if we have to, looking at it from a different perspective, if it's private property with an easement running on it, then we would go to Governor Abbott's opinion. And if it was in the best interest to protect the public, then it would still be a government-funded responsibility to come clean out the culvert so the water could flow. Does that sound like, does that, I guess, comport with your understanding of what's going on here?
That's correct.
Okay. The next thing that he has posted is, it is up to the property owners / HOA to complete the work on their end before positive results can be seen after the county has performed its responsibility to the taxpayer. So let me stop there. Do you know if Commissioner Riley has done any work on that particular easement that runs along Ranch Lake that he's discussing?
He has not, because that culvert is still many feet higher than the water level. The water it basically is damming up, and so more water that's pushed that way, it basically is going to have to spread out before it goes up and is able to get through.
So it needs a bigger swale,
culvert.
but it needs to be lower so the water can flow. Let me ask you this.
Yes.
The Westwood landowners and that border this particular culvert, and there's a number of them that, because it's a really long stretch of land, you said that they may or may not have been on the drainage committee. I didn't catch which way, but if they were to go in and to clean out the easement to the extent that it was possible, would that make a difference for the water flow on this Ranch Lake culvert that you're discussing?
No, because the water would still have to rise up and through the culvert, and water doesn't jump up and to get through
So
the
the water could not flow to the culvert even if all of the ditches were cleaned out by the homeowners and they got a backhoe in their backyard. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. And so basically the homeowners have done, even if they were to do everything within their power to I guess, quote, perform their responsibility, it would still be up to the county to come in and do some work so that the drainage would flow properly. Is that correct?
That's correct. The culvert has to be lowered, or they have to figure some kind of way to get the water to move up and through the culvert.
Okay.
Since it is so much higher.
Okay. Now, Commissioner Riley references a engineer and survey plan. He says 2018 recommendation stated that in order to fix the drainage concerns, the HOA would need to correct the drainage easements. Do we have a copy of that that recommendation because I've never seen it, and that's completely contrary to what you're saying.
Yes, but it also said that culvert had to be lowered.
Okay,
Or
so
something had to be done with that culvert in order for the outflow.
for it to actually,
In order for the water to make it to the other side of the culvert,
okay.
it would have to be lowered.
Okay, and so I'm going to ask you, and I know it's a lot of work because you've got so many things on your plate right now, and you're just, a volunteer board member for the Westwood Landowner Association. But I'd like to post that report, that engineering survey that says that, or at the very least get my hands on it so I can go over it in detail with Commissioner Riley, either through a written correspondence or him on the show. Can we get our hands on that so I can talk about it on the next show?
Yes.
Okay, good. So on our next show, we'll be able to, at a minimum, discuss this survey and determine whether or not what Commissioner Raleigh is saying is true, or maybe he can clarify his statements on this posting. Okay, so it goes on to say at the end of this posting a lot about Westwood subdivision, which is kind of confusing because it sounds like the problem is one that is a county issue as well as Sandera Ranch. And this goes on to say that Jennifer Eckhart was a part of the Drainage Committee on Sandera Ranch, and she also happens to be running against Commissioner Riley for the commissioner's position. So I'm sure she's going to have something to say about it. Hopefully we can get her on the show. But this is what it says about, it goes on to say at the very end of this post. It says, service request by department since 2017, 655 total service requests. Then it goes to say the Drainage Department had 421 service requests, culvert sets, erosion, ditching, and cross pipes. Road and bridge, 62 service requests. So this is over a 5-year period. So that would be about, divided by 5, looks like about maybe 12 a year. Right-of-way, 45 service requests, mowing, trimming, tree removal. Sign department, 32 requests. Dead animal, that's kind of weird that he kind of throws that in there. 95 service requests. And then it goes on to say the number of requests do not include regular maintenance, only residents' calls. So looking at this total, what can you tell me about, what do you know living in, having your residence in Westwood Landowner Association? Does this sort of accurately reflect what you know, or I don't know anything about this? Tell me what your position is.
So each service request, if a new house is put in, then they have to have a culvert, and that's considered a service request.
Okay, and we've had at least 400,
Yeah, we've had quite a few, new houses put in. If they have a second driveway put in, that's also a service request. If somebody needs their ditch dug, and while the ditches are the responsibility of the county, the county will not dig out the ditches to maintain water flow. So if one resident calls and has their ditch dug, requests for their ditch to be dug, if their neighbor does not call also, that ditch doesn't get dug.
That means the neighbor that had their ditch dug is now got to take a lot of water in because it has nowhere to go.
It's going to take it's going to take water in.
Okay. Right.
So, and then we've also had complaints of where the homeowner has called and requested their ditch to be dug and were fixed because they've had standing water in it for 6 months at a time, causing mosquito issues and, all sorts of issues because we are on aerobic septic systems or in that, if it floods,
it's a public hazard. Yes, it's a health hazard.
It's a public hazard.
Right.
Yes.
Let me ask you this: oh gosh, I lost my train of thought while you were telling me about that. Would the county have we asked as a homeowner association? Has Westwood Landowner Association asked the county to come in and dig the ditches uniformly so that it's back to the level that it was at the time that the subdivision was created? Because it seemed that if the homeowners association, although it's not their responsibility, went in and said, "Can you please come in and put the ditches that are on the county easements are the county responsibility back to the level that they were, to get the silt down and, to get everything level. Have we asked the county to come in and do that? And what was the result if we did?
Yes. And the Commissioner Riley has stated that they will not come out and dig ditches unless the homeowner calls and requests it, because some of the people get upset about their ditches being dug too deep, or ditches even being dug where the grass is taken out, and because they, it's a voting situation basically.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't want anybody mad at them.
Okay, so let me ask you this though: if that's the case, where it's an individual request, as a landowners association, would there be a way to get a petition signed if you went door to door to each person to have them basically request as a group in order for the benefit of the community? Is that something that's even possible to get everyone within a particular, I guess, drainage easement right of way to sign off on it, to present that to the commissioner so they'll come do a uniform ditch dig?
We have not tried that. With the drainage not being in the purview of or in the wheelhouse is what a few of the attorneys have said, in the LOA's wheelhouse.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we'd have to do that on a volunteer basis, and just go to them and ask them, hey, can you sign for this? And which we would be glad to do if it would be.
If it would work. But you're saying that right now, even if everybody agreed to have their ditches dug on this one particular drainage easement thoroughfare, that it still wouldn't resolve the problems because of the way that the height of the current culvert is apparently above where the ditches are. So it wouldn't do any good. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Well,
for section 4 specifically.
Okay. Is that where is this the plat that's attached to his a post? Is that for section 4? Because we have a number of sections in Westwood.
Yes, that is for section 4.
Okay, so it may be different for the different sections, but with regard to section 4, it appears that some of the things that he's asserted may not be accurate, and we'd like to have him address those issues by making a comment in writing to us, or I say us as in the Westwood Landowners Association, or maybe the full community, anybody listening out there, or maybe have him come on the show and discuss that, or come to a Landowners Association meeting. Does that sound like something that may need to happen to clarify what was posted?
Yes.
Okay. And now, just to kind of wrap things up with this segment, is there anything that you want to add that we haven't covered?
I don't have the particular court case in front of me, but there was at least one where it's been cited several times in other court case opinions that the easement owner, meaning that since it was given to the public entity, the county, would be responsible for the maintenance of the easement.
Okay.
I can forward you that.
Well, I would like you to forward it to me so I can post it on our website. And then when we, if we have the opportunity to talk to Commissioner Riley or get some response from him or feedback, as well as his opponent, Jennifer Eckert, who apparently was on the Drainage Committee and may have some understanding of what was going on with this particular culvert that's being discussed, that would be a good thing to have in hand to be able to discuss with both of them. So if you'll forward that and we'll post it on our site, we can talk about that hopefully next week or when we get a response.
We also have there was a meeting that Commissioner Riley and the county attorney came to at the Westwood Landowners Association.
When was that?
Building.
Mm-hmm.
That was probably back in 2018.
Okay.
Where and Commissioner Riley stated yes, he has the right to maintain the property, but nothing makes him take the responsibility to maintain the property,
And you're
to
saying
maintain the easement.
and you're saying that's contrary to a case that you're going to provide me, as well as Governor Abbott's opinion and your understanding of the governing documents for Westwood. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so we're going to go over those three, I guess, factoids. I guess they're not even really factoids; they're actually legal documents that support that perhaps what he has posted may be interpreted differently, or there may be some confusion about it, and let him, Commissioner Riley, clarify that for us, or let his opponent Jennifer Eckert give us some feedback on that and her position, since I would love to get this drainage issue resolved. So I'm gonna talk about some drainage related responsibilities just in the city ordinances, as well as some stuff that's been posted by Texas A&M on water law and drainage responsibility. So I'm going to go over that in our next segment. But thank you for contributing what you have so far, and hopefully we can get you on again.
Thank you for having me. And it would, all of this affects other neighborhoods also.
Right.
So that is very.
This is analogous to all other communities in Montgomery County, and perhaps even the state, but right now specifically to Montgomery County, because this is what our show is covering. And we were just really focusing on Commissioner Riley, who is the commissioner in Montgomery County, Precinct 2. We're just kind of focusing on some things that he said and how the law kind of segues into that. And so what we're going to post on our website is we're going to post our legal opinion from our attorneys, that we can dig that up where it was. We're going to post the case law that you found that says that if there is a government dedicated or owned easement, that they have to maintain it. We're going to post Governor Abbott's opinion GA 0528 that talks about if it's a public, or asserts that if there is a public need, that the government will fund the cost for preparing these easements. And we'll hopefully also be able to get both Commissioner Riley and his opponent in to give us some of their information on this issue, and so we can clarify it for everybody in other communities as well.
I appreciate it.
All right. So thanks for coming on, and we'll talk to you later. And so we're going to take a short break, and then we're going to talk about some of the drainage laws and that's given us some information from the Texas A&M real estate area.
Lone Star Boxer Rescue is a nonprofit organization serving Montgomery County and surrounding areas, dedicated to the health and well-being of the boxer breed. Lone Star Boxer Rescue is run and managed 100% by volunteers since 1999. Our main objective is to rescue, rehabilitate, and rehome boxers that come to us from many sources, including local animal shelters, owner surrenders, and strays. For more information about Lone Star Boxer Rescue, visit our website at lsbr.org.
Hi, welcome back to the Legal Connection Show, and we're talking about water damage and water rights and whose responsibility it is, whether it's the county or the private owners, to rectify some of the problems that we're having with drainage issues in Montgomery County, which is a pretty common problem we have out here, because basically a lot of our subdivisions were built on swamps. We have a lot of bios out here. As we talked about earlier in the show, we know that some of our subdivisions were basically designated to be lakes, just like we had Lake Conroe as a low area. But I think that we actually had Lake Conroe as a whole different show in itself that talks about why Lake Conroe was built in the 70s, and it's a reservoir for water and what have you. But I know that it was designated on a bunch of plats that I looked at when I went to go look in the, some of our county archives, that Magnolia Lake was designated right off of 2978. It's a low area. And even where the Target Center is, it was an area where Bear Branch and some of our creeks actually drained, and it was built up and built upon. So we do have, when you build on land that was at one time a waterway, then you've got a higher volume of water that's flowing through a narrower path, and you've got to look at your 100-year plains, floodplains, and what have you. So what we're going to talk about is a little bit about Texas law and water, the Texas water law. And I'm reading from the Texas A&M University website, and they are a wealth of information. I love to go to their site. I'm getting ready, like I said, I'm getting ready to get my master's from Texas A&M in land development and what developers look at when they're starting to put subdivisions in here in Montgomery County, which is one of the fastest growing cities in Conroe and then Montgomery County in the country. So I'll have even more information for y'all as I get educated on this through my professors at Texas A&M starting next week. All right, so here's some information so you don't have to look it up about Texas water law. In Texas, water rights depend on whether the water is groundwater or surface water. Generally, Texas groundwater belongs to the landowner. Groundwater is governed by the rule of capture, which grants landowners the right to capture the water beneath their property. The landowners do not own the water, but have a right only to pump and capture whatever water is available, regardless of the effects of the pumping on the neighboring wells. Surface water, on the other hand, belongs to the state of Texas. It can be used by the landowner only with the state's permission. Okay, and you wonder, why is that anything to do with drainage? Because it does, and we're going to get to that in just a little bit. And before I get into groundwater and surface water and using those rights and drainage and that kind of thing, I'm going to flip over to drainage water, because that's kind of what our show is about today. Diffused surface water in its natural state occurs after rainfall, snow melt, and flows across the land with high elevations, from high elevations to lower elevations. This diffused water is often called storm water, drain water, or surface runoff. Once the water flows into clearly defined watercourse, it is claimed by the state and is subject to appropriation. On its way to the watercourse, drainage water often flows across privately owned lands. In such cases, the water does not automatically become the property of the landowners, although they may capture and use it. Legal problems arise when a landowner interferes with the natural flow of drainage water by capturing and holding the flow, or by diverting or increasing it. There are 3 general rules of law that apply when diffused surface water is captured or diverted. And the first one I was going to talk about on the show, but I only have like 5 minutes, so I'm just going to hit on it, is the common enemy rule. One is called the common enemy rule, one of the 3 issues, 3 general rules. Under this rule, drainage water is regarded as an enemy common to all landowners. The law allows every owner to take any measure to protect property, regardless of the consequences to other neighbors. Okay? And I have a whole write-up that I'm going to post on the common enemy rule. And but basically it works like this. The term common enemy originates from the idea that surface water is a common enemy of every property owner. The common enemy doctrine embraces the idea that because water is a common enemy, surface water may be diverted at the landowner's discretion, though the diversion may actually hurt an adjacent owner. And that goes back to a Supreme Court case in Texas, Miller versus Letzerich in 1932. And it goes on to say that, actually there's a law, it's in the water code, it's Texas Water Code 11.086. It says, no person may divert. They actually had to make a law to counter this, and this is in Westlaw in 2017, to offset this common enemy rule. It says, no person may divert or impound natural flow of water. It's a good thing I'm not a news broadcaster. No person may divert or impound the natural flow of surface waters in the state, or permit a diversion or impounding by him to continue in a manner that damages the property of another by the overflow of water diverted or impounded. And that was Section A of the Texas Water Code, Section 110886. But Section B says a person whose property is injured by an overflow of water caused by an unlawful diversion or impounding has remedies at law and in equity and may recover damages occasioned by that overflow. So basically that's saying it's contrary to the Texas Supreme Court case that says you can protect your own property. A law had to be created that says that if you've got a water flow that's going through your property and you divert it, that if it hurts your neighbor, you're responsible for it. Surface water is water such as rainfall runoff that collects and flows on the ground but does not form a watercourse. So our show is, I've used up the time allotted for today's show. We're going to go over this in a little bit more detail on the next show. I'm also going to post the common enemy rule, and the other two issues. That was the natural flow of civil rule and the reasonable flow of water and ground flow in the next on my website. We'll talk about it in the next show. So thank you for listening. We're going to talk more about this on our next show. This is Tony Collins signing off for today in the Legal Connection show. If you missed part of it, please go to our website, our irlonestar.com, to listen to our webcast, and we'll talk to you later. Remember to serve God by serving others, and we'll talk to you next week.